Thank you, Lucy. Hello, everyone. It's great to see people from so many places. Wow. Well, here's an overview of what we're going to be covering in this session. First of all, I'm going to give you a brief personal history about why I'm here talking about songs and music. Then we're going to look at a song checklist. Now, this is basically if you decide you want to use a song in your classes, this is a checklist of different things that you can do with that song, and you can see which ones you want to choose. Then we'll look at some other ways to use music, and then I want to show you some 2 or 3 very easy music projects to set up with your students. And then to end with the famous vocabulary beats, which are the last project that I've been working on. Now, this session is called a mixtape for teachers, and I chose the word mixtape for 2 reasons. Now, there might be some of you who are too young to know what a mixtape is, so here's a definition. And if there are any of you who don't know what a cassette is, here's a picture. Do any of you still use cassettes today? If you do, then say so in the chat box. Okay, so mostly it's definitely a thing from the past. Now, there are 2 reasons why I chose the mixtape title. One is because when I was putting this talk together, I thought it's a bit like compiling a mixtape. It's taking some ideas of how to use songs in the classroom and then trying to put them together in a way that makes sense and will hopefully be entertaining for you, which is the same way as when we used to make mixtapes. And mixtapes are really from the 1980s. And I want to take you back to 1984, which is when I started teaching and also started using music in the classroom. Now, all the material that we used, audio material in the classroom in the 1980s, was on cassette. And we also used songs on cassette. But finding a song that we could use in class was difficult because there wasn't any YouTube or Spotify or the internet. There weren't even any CDs. So it was very difficult, especially finding lyrics for songs. Sometimes we were lucky and there'd be songs with the vinyl record or with the cassette. And there were some magazines that did have song lyrics in them. But otherwise, it was a matter of sitting down and listening to the music and writing the lyrics if we could understand them. There were also quite a few ELT songs, which had the advantage because they would practice specific English. And because I was a songwriter, I started writing songs for the students as well. And together with another teacher at the school, we wrote some songs for the Cambridge English course. Now, one of those songs was called Brighten in the Rain. And we used this song to practice the present perfect. And I want to play it to you just as an example of an old ELT song, because I have a soft spot for it. And we did 2 versions. We recorded 2 versions of the song. And the first version had the same gaps that the students had, so they could listen while they were doing the activity. And the activity was to write the verbs in the past participle. So let's just hear a little bit of the song. I've never to Athens and I've never
to roam. I've only the pyramids in picture books at home. I've never across the sea or inside a plane. I've always my holidays in Brighton in the rain. I've never foreign food or in a foreign bar. I've never.
So then, once they'd done that, they would listen again, but this time they would hear the answers.
I've never been to Athens, and I've never been to Rome. I've only seen the pyramids in picture books at home. I've never sailed across the sea or been inside a plane. I've always spent my holidays in Brighton in the rain. I've never eaten foreign food or drunk in a foreign bar.
So yeah, ELT songs are great because you can practice specific things from the course that you're teaching. But students usually always prefer authentic songs. Now, I don't know how many of you used cassettes in the past, but I have a love-hate relationship with them. I love them because you can record so many things on them. But the other thing was they were so hard to use. If you were looking for a listening exercise on a cassette tape, it was a real pain. And also, as in the picture, sometimes the tape became unraveled and was a real mess. There were other tapes that appeared around the same time, and those were videocassette tapes. And so also at the end of the 1980s, we were using quite a lot of music videos. And I used to spend quite a lot of time creating worksheets to use with videos that would then be used by different teachers in the school. But why use songs in the classroom? Now, a little while back, I was talking to teachers in Mexico about using songs, and these are some of the reasons they gave for using songs. Entertainment. We all love music. I've never met anyone who doesn't like music. So it's a great reason to use songs. And also, I think it's nice to have a change of focus. The other thing is, how often do students ever come to class and bring something to class that they want to work on? So it's a great opportunity to use something that the students want to use. This is also true. They teach you the language, but without grammatical expressions. And also they introduce students to a lot of real language that you won't find in the course book. And also some interesting themes and topics that aren't normally dealt with in the course book. This was a teacher who first learned English because she wanted to sing. And I think a lot of people learn English because they want to understand more about the songs that they like. And they are memorable. If you do a really good lesson using a song, that song is going to go around in your students' heads for days. And probably in the future, when they hear the song, they're going to remember the lesson. So it makes it really valuable material to use in class. Also, today, it's so easy to get hold of songs. On YouTube, there are thousands and thousands of videos with the lyrics of the songs. And there are other streaming services like Spotify or Apple Music. And Apple Music and Spotify also provide lyrics for a lot of songs and have a karaoke feature. But if you want to use a song, what do you do with it? How do you use the song? And this is our song checklist. And I think the first thing you want to do is find a way into the song. How can you get started, because I always think it's better to use the actual song later in the class when the students have done some work. You could do some prediction questions, use picture prompts, word prompts, just to get the students discussing what the song might be about, or use the song's title or opening lines. So I'm going to show you an example of that now. I'm going to ask you a question and just think, first thing that comes into your mind, just type an answer into the chat box. Here's the question. Who's Pepe? A frog, wow. My son, a raccoon, my friend. Okay, those are some nice answers. The voice in my head. That's weird. I asked the question to some people in the UK, and here are some of their answers. Okay, I see someone's written a Romanian singer. He's also in EastEnders. He was I don't know if you know EastEnders, it's a British TV soap opera. And there used to be a character called Pepe who has a brother called Gianni. Yeah, it seems like it's something Spanish. And also, Pepe jeans used to be really popular. I don't know if they are now. And as some of you said, I don't know. So I'm going to show you a picture of Pepe. Here he is. So looking at him in the picture, how would you describe him? What kind of person do you think he is? Angry. Troubled, young, obscure. Peaky Blinders. That's a good one. Yeah, what's he doing? He's got his hand out. A superhero. Ah, begging. Okay, asking for money. Okay, I'm going to show you two more pictures from the story of Pepe. Okay, this looks like a police station. Those look like mug shots of Pepe in the background. And this is a magazine. Looks like it's a movie magazine. Okay, so there you've got three pictures that give you some idea of what the song is about. And rather than picture prompts, we could use word prompts. For example, I've taken some words from the first verse of the song. And if some of the words the students don't know, they could always look these words up in a dictionary first and then try and work out what they mean. How could they be related? And then you could give them the first verse of the song with those words missing. So they put the new words that they've learnt into the lyrics of the song. Okay, so that's just some ideas for a way into a song to arouse a student's interest. The next thing you need to do on the checklist is see if the song tells a story. Now we know that Pepe's song tells a story because we saw those pictures. So what I want to do is just play you the first part of the song. Listen to a couple of verses and a couple of choruses so you can see what the song is about.
Pepe emptied his pockets, had no money for the train. Stood on the crowded station concourse thinking, I'm never ever going home again. So he walked up to a stranger, said, hey mister, won't you please give me my fare? And 2 hours later, he was rich and still standing there. He had made an important discovery, how easy taking other people's money can be. When Pepe danced, he'd close his eyes, stretch his wings, and he would fly like a bird gliding high in those deep blue Spanish skies. Pepe picked pockets and stole his first car, broke into a luxury apartment thinking, I wanna be where the rich kids are. In the commissaria, Detective Garcia pinned Pepe's picture to the wall, said, I'm gonna get you, kid. And all it took was one call. Newspaper reporters told of Pepe's life of crime, from courts to institution and back to the street one more time. And when Pepe danced, he'd close his eyes, stretch his wings, and he would fly like a bird gliding high in those deep blue Spanish skies.
Okay, by the way, at the end of this talk, I'm going to give you a link where you can go and download some of the material that we're using that includes that song and all the artwork and the lyrics that go with it as well. So if your song that you want to use tells a story, there's a lot of things that you can do. For a start, you could get the students to order the verses, give them in a jumbled order. They could think about what happened before and what happened after the story in the song. For example, at the beginning of this song, Pepe says that he's not going to go home anymore. Why? What might have happened at home? Students could role play a scene. Maybe they could think about what happens 10 years in the future. They could imagine they are the characters from the song and then create a scene in which they meet each other. If you're lucky, in the song you want to use, there might be a writing link. There might be a message that someone writes. And I don't know if you noticed, but in this song, there's a lyric that says that the newspaper reporters wrote about Pepe's life of crime. So the students could write a news story imagining they are one of the news reporters, for example. Also with songs, there's usually a story behind the song. Why did the person who wrote the song do it? Now, a Pepe song, I wrote the song originally because when I came to Spain, I was amazed that there were all these films about young delinquents, young criminals, and they created these movies and they turned these criminals into actors and gave them parts in these movies that had titles like Perros Callejeros and Navajeros. And suddenly these young criminals became big stars. And of course, when that happened, they couldn't handle fame. So the story of the song was really what was happening that I could see that seemed to be something unique to Spain when I came here. But if you need to find the story behind songs, there are lots of places you can search online. And also, I don't know if you know Song Exploder. It's a really interesting podcast, and also there are some episodes available on Netflix. But in Song Exploder, songwriters talk about how they wrote their songs and how they put them together. I'm not suggesting that maybe you use Song Exploder with your students, but it'll give you some ideas, and also maybe you'll be able to use some extracts that aren't too challenging for your students to handle. Yeah, and you could use a song to teach about cultural diversity. That's true. Okay, so we looked at two things, and now I want to look at working with the lyrics, because a set of lyrics, the words of the song, basically it's a text like any written text that we normally use. And so you can use them in the same way. For example, you could do some kind of language work. I don't know if there was some kind of grammar you wanted to take from this song and this verse. What would you focus on? Any thoughts? Simple past. Yeah. So we could take out the verbs, put the verbs there, then they have to decide which verb goes where and put it into the past tense. So that's the kind of task you can do before listening and checking. You could do a vocabulary task. You could take out certain words, especially words that are obscure, and students look them up in dictionaries and put them into the right place. Translation is always fun to do with songs because they often do use a lot of obscure language. And it is a good way to get students to work on their dictionary skills in much the same way that we just talked about. If they look at the words, then you could also extend it by writing sentences using the new words. Some of the sentences could use the words correctly and other sentences incorrectly. So students have to work out how they're being used. They learn the words and then they can put them into the lyrics. Now, if you're really lucky, you could do a pair work exercise like you would do with a normal text. Pepe emptied. Student A asks student B, what did Pepe empty? And vice versa. It doesn't work with many songs, but it can work. You can also do something with rhymes. Find the rhyming words and maybe take out one in each pair, and then the students have to find the words that rhyme and put them into the right place. And then we have the cut-up technique. Now this is something that I like, and I particularly like it because I'm a fan of David Bowie, and he used to use this technique when he wrote his song lyrics. Basically, he would write down lines from books, from his diary, from other songs, from poems. He would cut them out, and then he would cut some of the lines in half or cut out different words, and then he would rearrange them. So he would take existing lines and then put them together to create new lines. So if you're doing this with your students, you could ask them to try and put the cut up lines into the correct order from the song, and then listen to the song to check their answers, or they could be creative and invent their own order that the words could appear in. And in fact, you could ask them to create their own song. They could take sentences from the course book or from anywhere, from an advertisement, write them down, cut them up, and then try and create the lyrics of a song. If it's good enough for David Bowie, I think it's good enough for your students too. Of course, the song might have a video. If so, you can just focus on the visual aspects. I put this image here because it's from a really, really old video. I don't know if any of you would recognize it, from the Alan Parsons project. And the song had nothing to do really with the song. The video had nothing to do with the song. And so we did a whole worksheet based on the video, which was all about comics. And so we could teach the students some comic vocabulary that they could use. And then listening to the song was just an extra. You could use the song to introduce a theme that you have in the course book. Or you could focus on the artist. There's loads of material on the internet, so you could just leave the song to one side and find some material related to the artist. I did a search online to see what there was for Billie Eilish, or is it Billie Eilish? I never knew originally, and then I found this interview which explains and clarifies how it should be pronounced. Again, it's quite an easy text to do, and the students learn something about the artist, and then you can use the song at the end. Oh, I'm glad to see someone loves the Alan Parsons project. Students can also give an opinion. Everybody has an opinion about music, whether they love a song or they hate a song. So getting students to describe how they feel about a song is a really valuable task. Or you could find a review of one of the songs that you want to use and see what the reviewer says about the song or about the album, and then find out if your students agree or not. And the very last thing here is sing, because students sometimes like to sing. I always have mixed feelings about trying to get students to sing, but I always find that if students want to sing, they're going to sing anyway. So even if you're playing the song, they'll probably sing along to it if they know it. Okay, here's some other ideas about how you can just use music. I love background music. If I'm working or writing, I just love to have music in the background. And I think if you have it at the beginning of the class when students are arriving, then it just creates a much more relaxed atmosphere. And the same is true during a task, especially if it's a pair work task or something where maybe the students don't feel very comfortable talking to each other. It just, again, makes a more relaxed atmosphere, as well as at the end of the class too. And that brings us to playlists. Now, we started with a mixtape, and a mixtape really is just a different way of talking about playlists. If you use Spotify, Apple Music, or any streaming service, I'm sure you have your own playlists. Now, usually on these streaming sites, playlists are divided up into genres of song: hip hop, flamenco, R&B. But also there are playlists that relate to activities, good music to listen to if you want to sleep, when you're cooking, doing a workout. So this is quite a nice little activity to get the students to think of songs for different situations. They should obviously try and think of songs with English titles or translate the other titles into English. But for example, songs for waking up, for traveling, they write in the song title, the artist, the genre, and it also gives you an idea of what kind of music your students like. So you could build up a playlist for your students. And in fact, one teacher recently was telling me that they have a different playlist for each of their classes. So each class has their own music that they can listen to while they're working in class. And apparently it works really well. Another nice idea is creating class surveys, again, to find out what kind of music your students listen to and like. You could create the survey, or why not get the students to create the survey for you? And then they can do it, and you can find out more about their tastes and about what music they would like to work with. Song titles are another good source of teaching ideas. Now, all these song titles are by the same artist. Can anyone identify the artist? I can't see any names coming up yet. No? Yes, it's Billie Eilish again. No Time to Die being the song from the James Bond movie. And the other titles are also hers as well. So in this activity, you would give the students a few song titles like this. Could be from any artist. And then in small groups or pairs, the students choose one of the titles and have to write a very short text, short story, which has the song title as the title of the story. But they mustn't include the title in the story. They do the activity, and then the other students, they read each other's stories and they try to identify which is the song title that is the title of the story. Here's a slightly variation on the same theme. Okay, all these song titles are by the same artist. Can you name that band? This one's too easy. Yes, the Beatles. So here we have a list of Beatles songs that are all names. And here we have another list that are all places. One-word titles. And finally, phrases. So the idea here, I mean, it's amazing how many songs the Beatles wrote. Do you know offhand how many songs they wrote? Any guesses? More. Okay, almost. Well, they can't agree, but they say it's either 213, 227, or 229. That's a lot of songs. In this activity, the students again have to write a very short story. It could be even like 50 words, excluding the titles. And they have to take one title from each of the categories. So they take a name, a place, one of the words, and one of the phrases. And then they write it into a very short little story. They then exchange stories with each other, and the other students guess or identify which are the song titles. You can do it like this if you're doing it online, or what did I just open? Something I don't want. Or you can do it as a cut-up task. You take all those titles, you put them on pieces of paper, and students blindly take one of the titles from each pile and then have to create their own songs. So those are just some ideas for using song titles. And now I'd like to show you some music projects. These are all really easy to set up and use. And the first is forming a band. And this is just a fun activity. You can spread it over, do it in one class or spread it over a few classes, doing 10 minutes each time. But the first thing the students have to do is to choose an instrument. So it's a good excuse to learn the names of the musical instruments. And the students should think which music instrument they'd like to play, but also physically, which is the best instrument for them. Or are they a good singer, for example? They then form a group. They think about which instrument they chose and try to make a group with other students so that their different instruments will sound good together and they'll make a good group. Now we're asking students to form a group, and we like our students to work in groups, so this kind of fits rather nicely. They can then create a press release. They give their band a name, they decide which kind of music they play, and then each student can give themselves a stage name, an invented name, and then complete a press release with all the information about them. They could try writing a verse from a song. Design an album cover. And then they could give a press conference. Usually press conferences with music groups. They're a kind of standard questions asking about the new record, the new tour, etc., etc. So the students in the rest of the class could ask the questions to the members of the band. And finally, they could also plan a video for their song and for their group. And this kind of leads on to another little mini project, which is making a music video. And they could make this for themselves, or they could try and make a video for an existing song. Now, most music videos, like any video or TV or movie, starts off with a storyboard, which is basically a grid like this. And for this, the students would then sketch drawings, very rough drawings of ideas of scenes that they would like in their music video and what would happen during the video. They don't have to be as good as these drawings, but this is just an idea, so you get the idea of how it would work. So they would make sketch drawings for their storyboard and just make notes of what would be happening in each part of the video. So then, when they've created their video, they could present their ideas to the rest of the class. Or if you or they are feeling ambitious, they could try to make the videos. Now, this is another project, organizing a music festival. This is quite fun to do if you get your students to think about where they live and what areas are available in their town, in their city, where they could mount a festival. And you can make it over 3 days, over a weekend. So the first things they have to think of are where they would stage the festival, and also which artists, which acts they would have on the 3 different days. So maybe working in groups, they could create their own ideas and then all get together to create a master list, making sure that you include as many of your students' favorite different genres and bands as you can. Then there's a lot of planning involved in putting together a festival. So again, you could divide your students into groups, and they could each have a specific area that they could be responsible for. And they would have to think, what would they have to include in the festival area? Which, yes, in this case is an open air festival. And then when they've decided, they could create icons for their different services. And then if they create a map, a plan of where they're going to stage the festival, they could put their icons on the festival map. And then they've got everything ready for the concerts. Again, in the old days, there used to be tickets. So students could design the tickets for the concert, put all the relevant information, and design the tickets. So those are just some easy to set up project ideas. And now I want to end with the vocabulary beats, which is a project I've been working on for quite a while. And thanks to Helbling, the vocabulary beats are part of the studio course, which I'm one of the authors on. And vocabulary beats are basically music tracks with spoken words and phrases for students to repeat. The idea is that they're a fun way to practice pronunciation of words and also the stress and rhythm in phrases and sentences. And the best way to explain how they work is to try doing one. Now, in studio, we use the vocabulary beats with the word lists that appear in the workbook. So here's an example of a word list. And what we did was to take different words and build them into phrases. So the students are always practicing vocabulary from the units that they've just been working through. These come up every 2 units in the course. And then they listen and repeat the words and phrases. Now, I think as we're all sitting in the comfort of our own homes, it would be quite fun to try one of these. And I made a video just to explain more how it all works. So I want you to watch the video, listen and look at the words, and then repeat them, but in time to the beat of the music. Okay, here we go.
Vocabulary beats 3 and 4.
Gym.
Gym.
Workout.
Workout.
I go to the gym.
I go to the gym
For a workout.
for a workout.
I go to the gym for a workout.
I go to the gym for a workout.
Tiger.
Tiger.
Miles.
Miles.
Tigers can run
Tigers can run
at 40 miles an hour.
at 40 miles an hour.
Tigers can run at 40 miles an hour.
Tigers can run at 40 miles an hour.
Part-time.
Now you try.
100. She works part-time for $100. She works part-time for $100. Stadium. Baseball. Match. We went to the stadium for a baseball match. We went to the stadium for a baseball match. Burglar. Guard dog. Tail. The burglar stepped on the guard dog's tail. The burglar stepped on the guard dog's tail.
Okay, so you get the idea. Now the thing with the studio beats, the vocabulary beats, is they can be used in class or students can download them. So they can practice when they're doing, they can put on their headphones and they can practice the vocabulary when they're walking, when they're exercising, or when they're just relaxing. And we think if they're used as solo practice, then they allow the students to build confidence without the pressure of having to speak perfectly. And if you use them in class, it's a different way to practice vocabulary, and chants are fun. And also they provide a different focus. You can also make your own vocabulary beats. All you need to do is first find a piece of music. Now, as part of the download I'm going to tell you about in a moment, there are 2 vocabulary beat backing tracks with just the music. So you can use them to practice your own vocabulary that you're teaching at the moment. So all you have to do is take 2 words that you can build into a phrase, and you divide that phrase into 2 halves. So you start with the individual words, then slightly half phrases, and then the complete phrase. The other thing you could try doing is just play the music and get the students to create the vocabulary beats. They could look at the vocabulary that they've been working on and then try and create their own phrases to repeat over the music. The thing that I like about them is, hopefully you agree, that they're catchy and memorable and stick in the mind. So it'll just make the vocabulary learning even better. Okay, so I hope I didn't go through those ideas too quickly, and I hope everything makes sense. And here is the address where you can download everything. There are the 2 sample backing tracks for the vocabulary beats, and a link to the YouTube video. There's the Pepe song, the audio track and the lyrics, and also a link to the video. And if you want to step back in time, then you can also use the copy of Brighton in the Rain to practice the present perfect. And there's a song checklist. Thank you very much for coming and listening and being here, and for listening to me. Thank you.